Hi, my name is Mark Johnson. I'm the Market and Business Development Manager with HP, focusing on direct marketing, which includes things like production mail and direct mail and all the good stuff that helps us communicate with consumers and sell our products and services. The purpose of this webinar is it's actually a replay of a live session that DS Graphics hosted in Boston to showcase their capabilities, and HP helped them participate by showing our technology and some of the programs that we've implemented across the world. And that's the whole goal of the session, is to show you a little bit about why direct marketing is effective, talk a little bit about what mass customization is. It's a term that HP coined, and we'll talk about how planning and executing those campaigns isn't such a daunting task when you take a crawl, walk, run approach. And then we'll go through some successful campaigns that we've generated, both the DS Graphics have done and that HP has done with clients around the country and the world. So with that, again, my name is Mark Johnson, and I will guide you through the next 30 minutes or so of hopefully some really good content. So the first question is, why direct mail? Now, our little funny video at the start may not be talking about paper that we print on, but it does, I think, help reinforce the fact that paper and print does have a great future. And there's not just anecdotal evidence behind that, the fact that we're all tactile people and like to touch and feel things, but there's actually statistics in the marketplace to talk through that. So one of the first ones that I always refer to, and this came out of the Australia Post, and what's interesting about doing stats from Australia is they tend to mimic the US very, very closely. And what the research that AusPost did was what preference consumers have for receiving marketing messages. And in this survey, they looked at mail, email, and a combination of both, and neither. Now, what's probably the best news of all is that only 6% of consumers don't want to hear anything from anybody, which is good news. 13%, however, preferred email as the main means of communication from people that are trying to sell them things. 37% preferred a combination of email and direct mail, and 45% preferred mail. So I think that's an interesting stat that reinforces what we're talking about with the value of print. When we survey marketers, this was done from the Primer study back in 2010, and marketers were queried about what their perceived benefits of direct mail versus other channels, and only 11% said there were no advantages. And by the way, these will not add up to 100 because you could have multiple responses. But the most important aspect of direct mail for marketers was the fact that its deliverability is so good. And that's something that the post office, even with all of the issues that the Postal Service is facing today, the one thing that I think everybody can agree on is mail gets delivered. And what's really neat about mail today with IMB and other technologies to actually track your first class and standard class mail is not only do we know that it gets to the household, we know when it gets to the household. And that becomes really important when you look at doing multi-channel campaigns, where I may trigger an email to happen after you've received the piece of mail. I might trigger an email before you receive the mail and let the mail reinforce that message. What's interesting is some of the multi-channel campaigns, I'll share the results with you next, will actually help reinforce that 1-2 punch effect. Some of the other positive aspects include better graphics. One of the nicest things about direct mail is when that piece goes into the mail stream, you, your agency, the designers, the brand, everybody knows exactly what that piece will be looking like and how the consumer will see the piece. When you look at some of the emails that we get on our smartphones or our tablets, a lot of the formatting takes place at the receiver's end. And with direct mail, we control that. We control the color, the logos, all of the aspects about that campaign are controlled up front. Another one of the highlights, 27% of the respondents talked about it being tactile. And this is something that we found from some of our college mailers that some of our partners have done. Students actually understand that email doesn't cost much to do. And what we found in some of the surveys was that students, and we're talking young people between 18 and 24, actually felt special. They felt that somebody was investing in getting that message to them when it was tactile. So there's something to be said for paper quality, for color, and personalization, that it makes the recipient feel special. You're trying to reach them, and they get that. Some of the other highlights from this particular survey, you can make things more personal, you can more finely target your message. Think about different demographics that you're trying to address. One of the most important ones being if you're going to reach out to Hispanic customers speaking the language. When you're reaching different demographics, when you're talking to an older demographic, using imagery and words that are more appropriate for that demographic slice than for, say, a 20-something. Email by itself is not a good solo channel, and one of the best examples I've come across in my travels came from Mark Krolik, who's the Managing Director and VP of Marketing at United Airlines Mileage Plus program. He shared this with the audience at the DMA Big Data Conference in December of 2012, and what he said was emphatic and clear. United Airlines reduced and almost eliminated much of their direct marketing to their Mileage Plus members, especially to their higher tier frequent flyers, the Premiers, Premier Executives, Premier 1Ks. And what happened when United did that was customer dissatisfaction. This was in the middle of their merger with Continental, so there was a lot of communication happening, and somebody somewhere thought it would be a good idea to reduce the cost. And what ended up happening was spam filters kicked in, and when your only channel of communication is email, you're susceptible to a whole lot of spam filters, both from the ISP level, so if you're using Verizon Fios or AT&T UVerse or Comcast or Cox or any of the other major ISPs, they all have filtering built in that puts mail into the spam filter. Same thing with Gmail. Everybody who has Gmail accounts or Yahoo Mail accounts knows that. You've got this little folder hidden at the bottom where a lot of the stuff that may or may not be important to you is going to, based on filters that you didn't have anything to do with setting up. The ISP does that for you. Thank you very much. The other filter we have to worry about, not only within Outlook itself, if that's your mail preference, other email programs and spam filters that consumers install or that are installed for them on their PCs can also kick in and take a lot of valued email and hide it. So one of the things that United found was that they were causing their customers to be dissatisfied by not communicating important account information, things like merging your accounts, things like status alerts. So their plan in 2013 was to increase the amount of physical direct mail to ensure that their customers, their most valued customers, were getting communicated with. An old study that was done back in 2005 is one of the few that actually provided metrics about the advantages of email and direct mail, and I don't believe for one second that these trends are any different today than they were in 2005. Eddie Bauer worked with a company called SourceLink to put together a campaign where they used postcards and direct email messages for the customers they had emails for, and what they found was they got a 60% greater number of transactions when they did a 1-2 punch versus mail only. The click-through to conversion on the emails was more than double for the customers that received both pieces, and probably the most important metric of all is there was a 66% increase in the average order size when it was a 1-2 punch campaign versus any single medium effort. And that's been proven out. A lot of other companies have done this. I have anecdotally talked with folks that easily admit that this is the case. Very few companies will share results. So this was one of the nice ones that we could actually get some numbers. When you're looking at multi-channel, it's not just email and direct mail today. It's email, it's combination of emails with QR codes, emails with personalization, with click-through buttons. It's also emails formatted for smartphones. It's also direct mail pieces that include postcards, that include tie-ins with QR codes, so you can use a website as the landing page, not just a business reply card. So these are all different ways that you can take the same message and branch it out multiple ways. I think DS Graphics did a great job with the campaign that got people to their Lunch and Learn event by using a combination of emails, QR codes, direct mail postcards, and larger piece direct mails. So in this case, the Unlock Your Company's Potential part of the campaign was a postcard and an email, and the email was what triggered you to come to the website to write. When we look at cross-channel direct marketing across multiple platforms, these are a couple of different surveys, and this was done from Print on Demand Initiative, PODI, as well as Mindfire, who is a company that provides web-to-print software. And what they found was that using this particular survey methodology, lead generation across 46 campaigns showed personalization increased the response rate dramatically. If the DMA static response rate is 3.4%, personalizing that mail made it 8.2%, which got you a 141% increase in response rate over just a generic piece. The direct orders, where you're actually placing an order, those also were significantly higher, 325% plus, versus what the static DMA normal state would be. For traffic generation, getting people into the stores, this was the biggest bump. By personalizing it across 28 different campaigns that were evaluated, personalizing the piece, the response rate was over 600% greater than the DMA standard rates. And when Mindfire looked across 1,800 campaigns, and this is a broad spectrum of acquisition, retention, education, bank, lots of different sub-industries, the static response rate is 3.4%. They were able to show 4.5% by personalizing the pieces, or a 32% increase in response rate. So the message here is that cross-channel direct marketing performs, and personalizing it puts that steroids. The other thing about using direct marketing that has a digital component or a personalized component is it simplifies the campaign execution. So in the old days, printing things in conventional offset printing and imprinting them later on with variable data, you have lots of steps involved with getting the data ready, getting the first offset run done, then going back and putting the same paper through a different kind of a press to personalize it. And what can happen is campaigns can take you 45 days just to get the offset done, with press checks and approvals and color changes, and a total of about 90 days to get from idea to mailbox. Using digital printing technologies where you can do it all in one pass, we call it a white paper in workflow. But doing it that way, we can compress the campaign execution time down to 30 days in this illustration, but I've seen campaigns go from idea to mailbox in as soon as 14 days. The advantage for the brand or the marketer or the agency in doing something like that, you can tie things together with your broadcast, with your billboard, with your other external medias, and really do quick, targeted, almost a tiger team approach to some of your direct marketing. Mass customization is a term that HP coined a while back, and what that means is it's personalization, it's making things more one-to-one, but it doesn't have to be where the entire piece is customized to that consumer. It can mean versioning. So right now you might take a direct mail piece and version it regionally and have 4, 5, or 6 different regions in your campaign execution. With mass customization, you have no limits. You can have regions of one person if you'd like. I mean, for most campaigns, you're going to want to micro-target by city, by MSA, so you could take what used to be a 4 or 5 region campaign and blast that out to 30 or 40 regions. It doesn't cost a lot more to change the imagery, to change the wording on very, very targeted, more finely targeted regions. So that's what we call mass customization. And what that boils down to is it eliminates this whole idea of having to print something and then add personalization to it later, a 2-step process. So you get rid of this whole base stock and forms mentality, and everything is printed as needed when it's ready. You also aren't doing things like inserts and adding things based on regions or adding additional information. You can actually take what was on the insert and make it on the piece itself. Mistakes are reduced dramatically because you don't have to worry about spoilage, about missing, misinserting different regions. You get more flexibility, more agility to do things quicker and faster. The messaging is much, much more finely targeted. You're talking to the right customer with the right message. By doing things digitally, you also have the ability to lower your postage costs, because now we're not just sorting things at a broad spectrum, we're sorting things down to the carrier route order. And with digital printing, you also have the ability to electronically commingle or preset multiple campaigns. Maybe even your print service provider can take multiple customers and commingle things electronically so that when the printer is putting the job out, it's going out in carrier order. All the graphics that you're designing for digital print are ready for the web by default. JPEGs are JPEGs, everything works cross-platform, and there's a much higher degree of environmental responsibility by using digital print for the simple reason of we're not putting stuff in a warehouse and having a lot of spoilage. One of the things that makes me cry when I see banks that do these massive multi-million campaigns, they pre-print all of these base stocks and then something happens. The bank merges, the logo changes, the regulations are changed, which requires you to change the back side with different wording. All of that stuff becomes spoilage when it has to get tossed and reprinted. That doesn't happen using digital printing. So digital printing is what's the enabler for mass customization. And right now, if you look at where things are with digital printing today, there are so many technologies, and the technology itself has advanced so much from days gone by. We have inkjet technology, we have toner, we have liquid toner, we've got lots of stuff out there in our toolbox, and the quality levels that people are seeing today are as comparable as I've ever seen them. Offset replacement is possible with digital printing, both with inkjet and with toner. And what you're going to find is, if you look in your own mailbox, well over 75% of what's in there has been touched by digital technology, whether it's lasering on the letter or whether the whole piece is done by inkjet. And there's been a dramatic increase in the number of pieces produced by inkjet, not just bank statements anymore, not just credit card statements, but actual acquisition and retention pieces. The production costs have come down dramatically to the point that it's now very similar between doing the two-step offset laser and litho process to what we can do with inkjet white paper ink. It also gives you an opportunity to make new and different applications. I'll show you some of those. So when we look at printing overall, you know what? Printing is having a bit of a decline. We are seeing the number of pieces, the page counts go down in the traditional offset world. However, the amount of digital printing is going up dramatically. And when we look at just the last year, from 2012 to 2013, there was a 31% increase in the amount of digital color production. You know, monochrome black and white was flat, but the amount of color is going up dramatically in the billions of pages per year. So let's talk about, now that we've gotten technology out of the way, let's talk about how to use some of this mass customization and the ideas that we can come up with for personal. Favorite quote: Albert Einstein said, "We can't solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." And that's true, because a lot of the processes, procedures, and workflows that we've devised have been because of hindrances of two-step, three-step, four-step workflows, multi-stage processes. So by doing things digitally, we can completely wipe out the whiteboard and start. So let's talk about levels of personalization. It can be as simple as taking what you do today with laser and litho, converting it over to digital. You don't even have to increase the number of versions, just flat out convert it over. You're going to have savings, less spoilage, less waste, faster time to market. That's a great first step. Then the next step is going to be a new integrated document design where you can start adding some variable messages. And we're not talking just name and address and Dear Mark or Dear Sally. We're talking name, address, and changing the content, the actual wording. And the next step up would be increasing the number of images that you're using and changing the imagery based on region, based on demographic. You can segment your database in many more ways than you could before, so you can take those slices and then even more finely target them. So when you've got 5 regions to start with and now you go to 10, now you can take those 10 regions and start segmenting out, do we want to do multilingual? Do you want to do some in Spanish, some in English, based on the consumer's information that you've got on file? You can also then do some trigger-based marketing where you're looking at customer purchase history or purchased data. You know, don't have to know everything about your customers. You know, maybe some companies only have name, address, and basic information about their customers. You can enhance data by buying things from InfoUSA, from Experian, from Equifax, to further enhance your data file and make it more valuable, and use that data to target messages. Give you a word of warning though, don't be creepy. There's a great story that was in the New York Times about a year ago about a certain large red bullseye retailer that was so finely targeting information and compiling data that they actually were able to discover that a consumer was with child. And unfortunately, that isn't a good thing to do when that consumer is younger and maybe living at home. So when dad finds out that there's a new one coming along, that's not a good thing. So the message from the New York Times article, and this was also from a Harvard Business Review piece, was don't be creepy. Don't tell customers that you know too much about them. So it's a fine line, and there's a lot of really smart data agencies, and the folks at DS Graphics certainly understand that concept and can help you walk through that. The last step in this levels of personalization is complete full color. Make the thing gorgeous, make the thing extremely personal, one-to-one. And my point about this is you don't have to go to step 5 right at the onset. Don't trip down the stairs. Go step by step. Crawl before you walk. So how do you get started? I mean, that's a lot of stuff that we're talking about. The whole thing is start with a plan. It's the overall project plan that's going to dictate the processes and the data acquisition and all of that good stuff. So start with a plan. And how do you start with a plan? What are your business objectives? What are you trying to achieve? So if it's a sales increase, if it's a net new customer, if it's expansion of customers' wallet share that you have today, whatever that is, whatever the metric is of the business owner who's actually paying for the job, the business line owner who's paying for the job, the campaign, figure out what those metrics are and put those right up front and center. Now we have a goal that we're shooting for. Once you've got those clear business goals, then the fun begins. Now, DS Graphics has a great creative brief, and you can get that from your DS Graphics rep. But what that data brief does, the creative and data brief does, is it walks you through what the goals are, and then the process starts unfolding, and they'll work with you on getting the different data elements that you have, things that you're going to have to buy. But what it gives you is a checklist of things you need, things you have to look at, what you currently have and what you'll need to help you come up with the right kind of a campaign. And then, once you have the checklist put out, the timeline kind of makes itself. You know how long it takes to get different elements of the plan done and executed. And by the time you've got the whole plan written out, you're ready to go. Because at that point, you've got a goal, a cost, and a timeline. One of the things that's going to also unfold when you're building the plan is you're going to figure out who the right people within your organization, the agency, as well as the print service provider have to be to make this a success. So you're going to figure out, do we need marketing? Do we need IT? Do we have to go external IT? Do we have to have the agency scrub the data? All of that stuff will be clear as you're making the plan out. And then you can engage those resources, hopefully earlier rather than later, to ensure your timeline's met. Okay, so we've got a plan. Great. Now what do we do with that plan? What's the application that we want to do? So my big push to everybody is pilot, 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 and test. Don't change the world. Don't completely do things a new way wholesale. Test it first. And this is the rule of direct marketing 101. Test, test, test. So we're going to go through and pick an application that looks like it's got some potential. And you take that application and you do a simple A/B test. Take a segment of that application, run it digitally with customization, with personalization, and see what the results are. Take something you've already got on the docket, digitize it, make it an interactive, mass customized campaign, use some web to print, use multi-touch, and then do it the way that you've been doing it, and compare the results, and see what elements are driving up your response, your order size, your number of orders. Whatever the metric that you established in your plan was, use the test to figure out what element works for you and your customer. Set the expectations. You're going to have to engage resources across lots of different disciplines within the companies. You'll need to get people to sign in and buy in, but that shouldn't be too hard because the goals are clearly articulated in your plan. Might take you 3 to 6 months to get the results. I mean, we can do the campaigns pretty quickly, but to then measure, and that's the other key thing, is make sure you've got measurement built in so that when the sales happen, you can track how they happen, what campaign element triggered that sale to happen. And that's my crawl, walk, run story. Start small, test it, enhance it, measure it, report it back to everybody. Good, clean, functional design is always going to work better. Things like clear spaces for getting your messages to pop out, using lots of white space, integrating the pearls and the QRC codes and all that good stuff should be done so that the message on the piece is clear. Colors should be used conservatively, quite frankly. Don't oversaturate it. Crisp, clean, impactful design where the words and the messages just jump out at you. I think DS did a fabulous job with this piece to get you to this, the lunch and learn sessions. It just, everything that you needed jumped out at you, and you knew where it was, when it was, why I should go there, why I should care, and the imagery just kind of supported that almost at a subconscious level. A good piece is going to be easily identifiable to the consumer in the mailbox. You're going to know who it's from, and ideally it's clear and crisp. You open mail from people you know. So make sure that the logo and the branding is consistent with your other channels. That way you know the consumer is going to know who you are and open it up. You're going to tell them very quickly why you're reaching out to them. Why should I read this? And also tell them what to do. People like to be told what to do. What's my next step? Do I click here, scan that, type in this URL? Please don't do type in URLs anymore. Use QR codes. And then give them some sense of urgency. Why should I do something by what date? And then, of course, let's not forget the most important thing. Don't forget the offer. There has to be a compelling offer to get people to respond. So that's the 6 steps for what you're communicating to make it clear and crisp. Good, clean data is always your step 1. And it's not just good, clean address data. I mean, you have to scrub the addresses, of course, with USPS. But analytics can help you describe what behaviors you can expect from individuals. So that's done by segmenting, and you can segment on lots of different things: gender, age, transactional data history that you've got or that you purchase, as well as location, regionalization, all of that. Offers are based on consumers' previous buying patterns, and if you've done a good job with the analytics and predictive analytics, you can know what their likely next steps are going to be. Great example. You buy a new mover list, you know, obviously, when someone lists a house, you've got the realtor immediately off the bat, but you also know when you have a new mover, you've got certain things that are going to happen within 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. So appliance offers, decoration offers, things like that, landscaping. So a lot of that data can be purchased. Certainly mover lists are something that we've been using in DM for decades. That's a great way to get an initial set of data for one segment. Start small. Test, test, and test. I can't emphasize that enough. Test your segments, test your offers, test your technology and your methodologies. Show A/B where you can have an increase and see what piece of the test is triggering the increase. Here's some examples of the personalization that DS Graphics did with the postcard. Just really powerful, impactful graphics and big, huge headlines that grab your attention right off the bat. And again, it clearly told you what to do, why you should be reading this, and what your next step was going to be. QR codes, pearls, make it easy for the customer to call, write, click, or tap to get them to go to the next step. Success in a campaign execution comes from the strong team. So obviously, clearly nothing changes. Design is critical. So you want color, you want clear composition. All of that happens at the design stage. And a designer who can also act as a consultant and be a project lead to take the project across multiple disciplines, whether it's marketing, IT, external vendors and resources. A good designer who's also a consultative designer helps pull that all together for you. Marketing is going to be driving this because they're going to have both the checkbook as well as the metrics. They will know what has to be done to make a campaign successful, to have it measured as being a success. So marketing has to be willing to test and let you try new things. The design consultant can help show them what's possible. IT has to be on board to give you the data and to help you slice and dice the data. IT tends to look at things a little more siloed than marketing does. Marketing tends to look at things more broadly, but getting them together is an important aspect of making a campaign successful. So they're critical, important parts of the team. And then external vendor resources, whether it's your agency, your print service provider, your mailer, and your fulfillment house, all of those people have to be on board as well as part of the team. And that's what a good plan will help you identify, help you build, and a good consultant, project manager, designer, whatever you want to call that role, but there has to be a quarterback who's helping to coordinate all these different disparate parts together. So let's look at what's been done for successful campaigns out there. And I'll look at some that are from one that I like to show that just simply talks about cost savings, waste reduction, is from Barclaycard in the UK. Their challenge was they did things the old-fashioned way. Offset print a ton of base stock and then laser imprint stuff as campaigns come up. So what was happening for them is they had rolls and rolls and rolls of paper in the warehouse waiting to be imprinted. And because they did a lot of partner cards, these were very, very single use, if you will, rolls. So if it was a particular retailer tied with Barclaycard, they only used that base stock with that particular retailer. So the strategy was to eliminate all of this preprint and just print on demand as needed. And because they were using digital printing, they could commingle this stuff. So a retailer card could go out with a British Airways card. It didn't matter what was in the mail stream because different consumers were getting different pieces. So by eliminating all of that base stock, that included pre-press, plates, chemistry, all that stuff, all the proofing that was done in pre-press for the offset, all that's gone. all the offset printing is gone. So what happened is the warehouse only was being used for work in progress. So the net of all this, the results they achieved, it wasn't to increase response rates, which it did, by the way. The goal was to reduce the number of plates and the amount of time. So if you look at the packages per month, they did about 259,000 packages per month. What was 56 versions required 220 plates and generated some 1.6 million pages, was reduced to one version, it's all electronic, and 408,000 sheets. So the sheet count went down not because they cut the number of mailers, the number of packages stayed the same. They reduced the amount of paper from a combination of reducing extraneous sheets where they were able to consolidate, and because you can print the regulation stuff on the back customized and not fixed with offset, they could reduce the number of extra sheets being printed and also the waste and spoilage. So their paper yield increased to almost 98%. Huge savings for them. On the other side, not just trying to save money, but now trying to generate more business, was the store in Belgium called Colruyt. And they're kind of unique because they had an in-plant print shop that became a marketing agency. So they looked at things from a very marketing-oriented position. And Colruyt's challenge was they had this great program for consumers, for a loyalty program, that nobody was using. There was no benefit to using it. You were clipping coupons, but the card wasn't doing anything for you. So their customers were actually complaining. They were getting so much mail, and in Europe they don't have the newspaper inserts like we do. They have to mail these things out. So they were getting 32 to 64 pages of stuff, and the consumers were actually complaining that there was too much. You were getting baby stuff if you were in your 80s. You were getting wine if you never touched wine. So all of that was causing their customers confusion, and their loyalty program was not being utilized very well. So the strategy they came up with was to personalize the weekly flyer. So take that 32-page weekly thing that they mailed out and reduce it to 4 pages. These are offers that are very finely targeted to just the things you want or need. So the strategy was to reduce the amount of paper, but also make it much more impactful and meaningful. And by doing this, they relaunched their loyalty program and increased the number of loyalty card memberships from under 50,000 to over 1 million in the first year. They also dramatically reduced the amount of paper that they were printing with these programs and generated some 360 million euro in revenue growth that they attributed specifically to this program redesign. And DS Graphics has samples of this if you'd like to see it. We can also send them from HP as well. This is an amazing program that can be translated to any kind of a big box retailer. And it's one of our most successful ones that we've ever bid with. It was so successful, in fact, that they have a sister company called Zeb Jeans, which for the U.S. folks is kind of like a Gap or a Banana Republic. And Zeb had a problem in that their loyalty program was really dwindling. You know, the kids really didn't get it. They weren't using their loyalty card. And Zeb's approach to it was to go old school. They took a newspaper concept, so a big, huge newsprint, and customized it. So you got a piece in the mail that had your name on it, so Nikki Dufresne, Model of the Year, or Stefan Caria, Stud of the Year. So you had your name, Stud or Model of the Year, and then pictures and images keyed off of your purchase history. So if you bought skinny jeans, you got skinny jeans. If you bought tops, you got tops. So that was the concept, was to make it very personal and also to add a bit of a social media buzz to it. So they wanted to get people to go to the Facebook page and look at what Zeb Jeans was talking about. Well, this went beyond their expectations. Not only did people go to the Zeb Jeans page to talk about the program, they were taking pictures of themselves with the newspaper next to them. So if you go to the Zeb Jeans, the Zeb Web Shop page on Facebook, go back to October of 2012, and you're going to see hundreds of pictures of people standing with the newspaper next to them. That's all cute. That's a great social buzz. The real results were the in-store sales. When the newspaper came out a couple of days later, there was so much increase in traffic, they actually had staffing issues. They had to bring on more temps. So that was an important thing for them, is that it increased the number of promotions used by almost 30%, and it increased the number of people subscribing to this. Hey, I didn't get one of those. I want one. And they were signing up in the store. So almost 10% increase in program usage, which was huge. Similar kind of concept with personalization and customization, but doing it in more of a hybrid approach, was done with Harper's Bazaar, and Neiman Marcus. And what they did is they took the Harper's Bazaar magazine, the same one that everybody gets in the mail, and they tipped on a customized, personalized piece. So what they did for a new store opening for Neiman Marcus was this beauty event, and it had your name on it, and it had a special offer and a QR code just for you. That was tipped onto the back cover. It was polybagged. What was happening, Neiman Marcus had people walking in with their customized offers and the QR codes to scan. So it was a huge success for both Neiman's and Bazaar. And because this was such a success for Harper's Bazaar, the sister publications have been doing this across the entire portfolio. So we're seeing a lot of retailers stepping up and doing more customized, personalized, hybrid programs with magazines. So with that, I would like to thank you for your time in looking at some of these cool, successful stories, and encourage you to reach out to your DS Graphics rep to talk through any of these ideas or ideas that we haven't talked about, because the key point is there's potential in using digital printing to drive marketing results. Learn more about what you can do and be successful. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.